Hello and welcome to the Mixed Grill Podcast. Thanks for stopping by for a new segment we're calling Mixed Grill Quick Bites. This is going to be a standalone video where we break down one specific hand and talk about some overall strategy concepts along the way. Today we're going to look at what happens when two no-limit hold'em WSOP grinders tangle in a PLO8 tournament.
Yes, that's right. Like Mike said, we have two absolute crushers, two guys have been grinding in the no-limit scene for quite some time. Unfortunately for both of them, this is not going to be a no-limit hold'em hand. But let's meet the two players that are going to be involved in the hand, starting off with Dewey Tran. His reputation and his earnings precede him. 26 caches spread out amongst the WSOP and the WSOP circuit, $140,000 in lifetime earnings. He is going to be butting heads against Alex Burney, who himself is no stranger to the two-card felt, does have one WSOP circuit ring, $100,000 plus in lifetime earnings for him as well. But like I said, we're not looking at no limit hold'em here. So let's jump into the hand. And we're seeing the hand here in front of us. We have Dewey sitting on an 8,000 chip stack. Bernie with close to 14,000 right now. Dewey is going to start out raising from the hijack to 600, which is going to be two big blinds. And Bernie defends the min raise. These two guys are going to take a flop.
So Adam, so far, what are you thinking of Dewey and Bernie's actions here? Is that pretty standard? Is that stuff we're going to be looking to do in a tournament spot like this?
So action starts with Dewey in the hijack, and he opens the ace 9 5-3 double suited, which he's completely fine to do. When it folds to us in the hijack, we can start opening hands like 6-5 4-3 double suited, king jack 10 double suited. We're going to be opening all our combos of ace deuce XX, all of our ace 3 suited aces. And we're going to even be opening some hands like queen 10 deuce 3 double suited or queen 10 4-3 double suited. We definitely want to be opening all of our 10-10 5-4 double suited type hands from this point. So this is a great example of a hand that's going to fall into Dewey's opening range from the hijack.
Okay, so when it folds to Bernie in the big blind with the queen 4-6, no suits, he just defends. That's pretty standard, right? No complaints?
Yes, absolutely. Versus the mini from the hijack open from Dewey, as a big blind defender, we're going to be doing a lot of defending with all kinds of hands that aren't going to be in our range from the other positions. Just simple fact that we're getting such a good price. So we'll probably be defending anywhere from 60 to 70% of our range. So this would include hands even as weak as 10-10, queen jack, single suited, any ace and a low card with a nut suit. And even some Broadway rundown hands, high only hands, and some really weaker A6, XX hands like that are going to have to defend from the big blind.
And we have an ace deuce queen 2 diamond flop. Bernie is going to flop a middle pair or middle set rather with his queens with a 6-4 low draw. Dewey is going to flop a top pair with the 5-3 low draw. Dewey will lead out into this flop 675, which is a half pot bet after Bernie's check. Bernie is going to raise to 1655. Dewey is going to 3-bet to 6,300, which is effectively going to put him all in with only about 1,100 behind. Bernie goes ahead and sticks in the raise to put Dewey all in, and Dewey happily obliges.
Okay, Adam. So given all that action on the flop that got out of hand really quickly, what do you think's going on here? What do you think of what both players did in the spot?
Well, Dewey is in position, and it checks to him. On this particular board with the ace, queen, deuce, flush draw, low draws are present. This board texture is pretty typical for him to be putting in the c-bet. So he goes with half pot sizing, which I like. I might even size up a little bit more just because there's a fair amount of draws present. You want to use a larger sizing for protection on boards like that. I will say, though, from a range perspective that this board does favor Dewey, but a lot of what he's going to make often here are like top and bottom pair, top pair good kicker without much of a low draw. Just given that his range is made up mostly of ace deuce XX and ace 3 XX combos. So the times he does flop a pretty good low draw are when he has like the ace 3 5 X or ace 2 3 5. And then, he will have some flush draws himself. He will have all the sets of aces. Bernie did not 3-bet from the big blind versus Dewey's open. So we'll say that Dewey has all the top sets and Bernie has none. So from that perspective, the board favors Dewey, but often from a high perspective and not so much from a low draw perspective. Bernie will have probably more low draws than Dewey, just given that he's going to be defending with all of the 4-6, 5-4 combos with like 2 high cards. Hands like, this is a perfect example of a hand he would be defending with all his 10-10 and 2 low cards. All his big pairs and 2 low cards are going to defend. Really like 8-8, 5-4s a defend, 8-8, 6-4s a defend. So Bernie has all of those hands in his range, and Dewey does not. So
right. So like Dewey's going to have a lot of counterfeited low draws, and Bernie's going to have more live low draws.
Exactly. So that is important to note, and this almost is a action flop. So we're not surprised to see the action that we do. So Dewey should be c-betting at a high frequency relatively, and Bernie wants to be doing probably more check raising than check calling on this board. You're really going to put a lot of those ace X combos in a tough spot that really are just kind of like not much low draw, a lot of high activity. His ace deuce will be in a vulnerable spot if he gets check raised, especially if they don't have a low draw or a flush draw or some sort of combo high and low draw. So Bernie does go with the check raise. I think it's a 3x size that he uses. I would even recommend sizing up more. Bernie's particular hand is doing this flop smashes Bernie. So this is about one of the best flops he can hope for. He has a pretty good low draw in a middle set. So when you're defending from the big blind with a hand that isn't great, such as this is about as good as it gets. We want to be using a check raising strategy here because we want to be denying our opponent's equity. We want to be putting them in tough spots. So I would even go with a larger sizing than Bernie did and really start to put the pressure on. His check raise strategy is going to have a lot of 4-5, 3-4 with a flush draw, combos like that. You want to be check raising with ace queen, 5-4. That would be another good candidate for a check raise here. He's going to have some wrap and low draw, some flush and low draw combos that he should be check raising here. And really all of those hands are about 60 to 70% favorite over Dewey's exact hand. And just given that Dewey's going to have a hand like this very often where he kind of flops a top pair and a low draw or 2 pair and not much of a low draw or not much else.
So Adam, you mentioned equities. What's it looking like with these specific hands on this board?
So given their specific hands, Bernie's 67% EV, and Dewey obviously is 33%. Dewey doesn't have much high, so Bernie's a heavy favorite for the high at 80%, and he's got enough low draw here that he has reasonable equity of 20%, and Dewey has 50% for the low. But combined equities make Bernie a heavy favorite in this spot, given the specific hands that they're holding.
Yes, I think when we talked to Bernie, or we saw from the chat in this, that he kind of sigh called in this spot. He didn't love getting all the action, but it was actually a pretty slam dunk, given the exact hands.
Yeah, absolutely. That was somewhat of a noob roll from Bernie because when we flop something as good as this, we want to pile the money in. and we're very happy to do so.
Yeah, so from Dewey's side, he can't really love all this action, right? When he 3-bets, that's as a bluff, right?
Yeah, he definitely doesn't want to see action here, given that he really just has a gut shot, top pair, terrible kicker, and an okay low draw. His hand is a very good candidate for a c-bet and then fold to a check raise. So I would say standard hands that you would still be c-betting and folding to a check raise are going to be your second nut low draw, third nut low draw, some naked nut low draws, hands that have some removal, like top pair with a 3 in your hand, but not a low draw. Basically, hands that you can give up easily. So they have some equity, but you don't mind folding just because they're not pulling a tremendous amount of equity or they're not really on the borderline. So we're fine to give these hands up versus the check raise. So from Dewey's perspective, he really doesn't have enough equity to constitute calling, and I would recommend just giving this one up. Dewey is going to have all the ace-ace combos, the ace-queen, 3-4, the ace-king, 4-5 with the king-high flush draw. He's going to have enough hands here that he doesn't really have to worry too much about being susceptible to frequent check raise or being over-raised here and blown off his equity. He's just going to have so many better hands to defend with here that it's fine to just give this one up and move on and go to the next hand.
Yeah, so it looks like he's going to be well behind Bernie's value range. He's hoping that Bernie's on a bluff, but I would imagine that even Bernie's bluffs have pretty good equity. So kind of a crazy get it all in, call it off spot for Dewey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really sure what Dewey was thinking here. Maybe just enough low equity to continue and some high equity, but from his perspective facing the check raise from the big blind, there really aren't going to be any bluffs in Bernie's range. I mean, we kind of look at it as a combined EV perspective, and so Bernie's going to be check raising with a lot of combo draws, flush draw, low draw type hands. As we said, all of those hands just have a high amount of equity, so it's essentially not a bluff. I mean, he's just going to be an equity favored when he's check raising here often, unless Dewey defends with some of his stronger hands. So in spots such as these, I just think it's important to remember you're going to have a lot of stronger hands in your range. You're not going to be short of super strong hands on these boards. So just fold out some of these weaker hands and, you will have those strong hands to be able to defend against the check raise with.
And we see the end of the hand here. Unfortunately for Dewey, he did not catch up, not enough at least. He did end up rivering 2 pair, but that was not going to be good enough against Bernie's set of queens. Bernie also did river a low, which he did not need to scoop the massive pot and accumulate a very large stack.
All right, yeah, nice to see Bernie rewarded for making the plus EV play there and having his hand that's ahead hold up in the end. I think that'll about wrap it up for this one. Thanks for joining us for the first Mixed Grill Quick Bite. For future videos, go ahead and send us in your hand histories. Send us a hand that you played. It could be any mixed game. It can be PLO8, it can be PLO. You got some Raz or Deuce of 7 triple draw. Send those our way. Maybe it'll make it onto a future video. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time on The Mixed Grill.